Today on Locked On Red Wings, David Pastrnak of the Boston Bruins reportedly wants out. Is there a fit here in Detroit? And also, The Athletic released a poll of the best play-by-play TV crews in the NHL, and you'll never guess who number one was. You'll guess.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a producer over at 97 on the Ticket, while Scotty is host over at Locked On Tigers as well, and also freelance journalist for the Detroit News. Scotty, today we're going to be talking about, like I teased in the cold open there, the David Pastrnak trade rumors. Second time this season, reportedly a player has wanted out of the Boston. Second time this season we've talked about possibly trading for said player. And also the second time in 2 days we've talked about the Boston Bruins in some capacity because they also just fired their head coach on Monday. So we're suddenly becoming kind of Locked On Boston Bruins-esque in a way with all the Boston Bruins talk we got, but they're a deep team with a lot of players that apparently don't want to play for them anymore. So they're going to be a topic of conversation.
Step in Steve Yzerman.
You know, that's by God, that's his music.
That is.
As well as, of course, Scotty, The Athletic released an article polling the fan bases on who they think the best TV play-by-play crews are in the NHL. And we're going to break that down because it's really interesting where Locked On Red, or not Locked On Red Wings, but where the...
It's interesting where we land on that list.
It's interesting where we land on the play-by-play crews.
Tell you.
It's interesting where the Bally Sports Detroit crew lands on that list. But before we get to any of that, I want to ask you, did you end up seeing any of the Avalanche Oilers Game 4?
Oh, yeah. Fantastic game. I mean, I think that it could, like, if it wasn't 3-0, I mean, like, it could have been, you know, but a little more exciting. But it was still a great hockey game. Obviously, went into overtime and everything. Yeah, a lot of memes came out of that game too. That's for sure. Lot of memes. But yeah, it was a great hockey game, and yeah, I mean, I think clearly the deserving team is going on. So
I mean, with the two offenses that were going at it, I mean, obviously Colorado's got a pretty good defense, but the other team has Connor McDavid. It very much became a what is a defense type of series with just the amount of goals that were being scored and were being let in, which is not unfamiliar.
More important, depth or having one of the best players of all time?
Well, clearly we found out depth is more important because the Colorado Avalanche, who have elite talent and depth, end up winning that series. Were they down 3-1, 4-1 at one point, fought all the way back to win that game in overtime.
Yeah.
And really the key thing we got to remember here, Scotty, good for Darren Helm.
Good for Darren Helm.
It's going to be the first Stanley Cup final he's been to since 2009, where he sent the Detroit Red Wings to the Stanley Cup final and an overtime winner against the Chicago Blackhawks. He does not yet have a Stanley Cup ring. And so I think, is it blasphemy to say that I might be rooting for Colorado just solely so Darren Helm can get his ring?
I don't think it's blasphemy. I do think that a lot of people are going to have a problem with you saying that out loud. I don't think that that's going to go over lightly. I don't think people are going to be like, oh, yeah, totally, dude. I don't think that's going to be the reaction. But I do think that there is also a lot of people that agree with you.
I just don't necessarily. I mean, the rivalry's dead. So I'm not rooting for Colorado of the 90s. I'm not rooting for Colorado of the early 2000s. I'm rooting for Colorado because Darren Helm is on that current team and he's a former Red Wing, and I believe he's the only former Red Wing that's left in the playoffs. So I'm just like, and I'm not like, if Darren Helm doesn't win the Stanley Cup, I'm not going to be crying, but it's like, it gives me some kind of investment in the Stanley Cup final.
You kind of look like you might.
I am tearing up, but that's allergies. I swear to God. I promise.
No, Look, the
He was a fan
rivalry.
favorite.
Yeah, the rivalry certainly is not what it was in the glory days for both of these teams, but I still understand, you know, screw the Avalanche forever. I very much get that mentality. But you know, Helm's helm. I would like to see some Darren Helm success.
Yeah, I would too. And I mean, whoever wins the East, I think I would prefer New York at this point. But if the a lot of people are fed up with the Lightning, but if the Lightning
I
go
just
to the
don't
final,
like who wants to see the Tampa Bay Lightning three-peat?
the
Like,
only reason I could get on board with it, I'm not saying I am, but like I could, is just again because like it's very much a core built that Steve Eisman did, and so it's like still further than validates Steve Eisman's abilities. But we're
how
also
much more validation do we really
well,
need
and
on
also
that,
we're
though?
getting to the point where we are kind of 3 years removed from Yzerman being GM. So how much longer can we continue to give him that credit? I mean, he is responsible for Vasilevsky, but Kucherov or not Kucherov, Hedman and Stamkos were already there when he came in. So I mean, there are still a lot of that core pieces there, but the general manager now has done a lot too.
For
But
sure.
I just wanted to riff a little bit about that because that game last night was crazy.
It
But
was insane, yeah.
getting into our
Certainly.
topic for today, Fluto Shinzawa of the Athletic Boston reported today that David Pastrnak does not want to re-sign with the Boston Bruins and that trading will reinitiate or initiate a rebuild, which is something I didn't mention yesterday when talking about Bruce Cassidy because I wasn't fully sold on that being the case for Boston. But with the ever circling rumors that Bergeron may be retiring, again, those are just rumors and speculation. And with the firing of Cassidy when it happened, and now the rumors that Pasternak, on top of DeBrusk, who remember earlier in the season put in for a trade request, want out of Detroit or out of Boston rather. It kind of does signal the end of the Boston Bruins dominance era. It begins to maybe secure the fact that they might be entering a rebuild, and they are a team that very much has had success longer than what most people would be expected. I mean, we were talking about it this season with how stacked the Atlantic Division, and we mentioned like, when does this window close for Boston? It feels like that window finally is shutting, if not already shut. And if Pasternak does end up getting traded and not re-signing, boom, there it is.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that this is you're starting to see the beginning of the end, and they might hold on to enough pieces like that. That's still, age included. That's still a very talented roster they got over there, even with the loss of a couple of guys. Like that's a damn good hockey club, and so I think even if they lose a chunk of guys, they might still try and maybe like one last dance it, you know what I mean? And just
Yeah.
try and hold what they do have together and try to make one more push for it. But I mean, we're just in the last, 3 days, we've already talked about quite a few of their bigger pieces leaving. So I think that this is definitely um, maybe the beginning of the end. Again, they might hold on to it for one more year, maybe fight scrapped and claw their way into a wild card spot next year, even if they do lose a couple of big guys. But I think the beginning of the end has certainly started, and that window has certainly began closing.
So that brings us to the Detroit Red Wings now, who with projected $35 million of cap space could very well take on a David Pastrnak. And obviously the fit has to be there for Pastrnak as well, as he does have a modified no trade clause. So he
For
can
sure.
submit a 10-team list of teams he doesn't want to go to. But he's only 26 years old. He's a right-handed forward coming off a 40-goal season. This guy could immediately come into Detroit and ignite this rebuild, like really take it a huge step forward. And that's something we have talked about, is getting that guy in to take the next step forward for Detroit, to really not just make us take a step forward, but a leap forward, make us way more competitive. And if the Detroit Red Wings want to do that this offseason, assuming that's what they want to do, then making a pitch for David Pastrnak, who, mind you, has one more year of $6.6 million left on his contract. This is a guy that could completely turn around your rebuild in 1 year. Not turn around as like they're not heading in the right direction, but make them take a leap forward in their
Another
rebuild.
big step forward for sure. Yeah, and like I mean, there's a lot there, and like a trade package would be pretty wild. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I mean, optically, it certainly seems like a fun move to make for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's at 26 years old. He's had 26 years old, who has had a 30-plus goal season, with the exception of 2020, 2021, in every season since 2016, 2017, which is the year that Bruce Cassidy took over as well. So you might also, if you get Bruce Cassidy, if he becomes a head coach that you gather, that might become an allure for David Pastrnak, assuming that relationship was good, which it was, according to Patrice Bergeron, came out today, said he wasn't going to even entertain the thought that the reason Bruce Cassidy was fired was because he didn't mesh well with the players. So that could very well be a lure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it could. And I think, I don't think you do a move like that. I think at the end of the day, you get the head coach you want because they're a good head coach, not because, this head coach can get me another player.
I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying
if you do believe that is the best option, a little icing on the cake for sure.
It absolutely is. It's the AJ Hinch Correa train that we were all hoping would come to fruition that did not. I want to continue this conversation, but I do got to talk to the people today about Rock Auto. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible
for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts that you need.
I lost my spot. Thank you, Scotty. Winder often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning. It's funny, you don't even have it up. You have that memorized. And wait,
I have my own show too. Yeah.
but I don't have it memorized yet. I wouldn't be able to say that. And wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry. You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, and even 100% more for the same parts from your chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto's prices are reliably low for every customer. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, right locked on in there. How did you hear about us box so they know we sent you? Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts you will ever need. rockauto.com. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are talking about the possibility we're getting the temperature of the water on David Pastrnak being traded to the Detroit Red Wings, as it came out on Tuesday that he may not want to re-sign with the Boston Bruins when his contract is up at the end of the 2023 season. If you're the Detroit Red Wings, you absolutely want to look at a guy like that. But the question becomes, does he want to come to Detroit? Because he, in the prime of his career, looking for his next big payday, is probably also trying to go to a team who is in a win-now mode. I think there is convincing that can be done. I mean, if you're calling up David Pastrnak and assuming you're not on his 10-man no trade clause list, you call him up, you're Steve Yzerman, you go, listen, David, I know you want to win a Stanley Cup. You come here, we are so much closer to winning a Stanley Cup. We have Moritz Seider, just won Calder, which, again, is going to happen any day now. We'll find out.
Yeah, any day. I mean, sure. This is a guy that has been has gotten hard votes for like each of the last 3 seasons, and I think has a top 5 finish in there a couple years ago. Yeah.
And you're like, we have Moritz Seider. Simon Edvinsson is on the way. So defensive core is getting way better. We have $35 million in cap space. So we have the money to sign you to the extension you want and get others to complement Dylan Larkin.
Right. That's the biggest
Tyler
lure,
Bertuzzi,
I think. Lure?
Lucas Raymond.
Lure? Yeah, that's the biggest lure. Definitely not lore. Lure is the word I was thinking of.
We have the lore. We're an original 6 team as well.
We have that too, yeah. But I think that's the biggest lure you have is like, hey, we might be the only team that can. We already have talent up and coming. We already have a young core. We have enough money to pay you and like a lot more people to put around you, along with the young core that we already have coming up. We have the ability to do that. We have the ability to give you your payday and give other players out there a payday to complement you. We can do it all. Like there's not too many teams that can say that.
And it's not just points. It's like it's not even just that he was phenomenal because the players he was playing with, which we all know just isn't true. But for any naysayers that may be out there, this past season he had an expected goals above replacement of 19.9. He on his own provided 19.9 expected goals above replacement, and his expected wins above replacement, the amount of wins he brought the Boston Bruins above a replacement level player, was 3.5 all on his own. That is really damn good.
He's a Richard winner, right? Didn't he
I
lead the
believe
league
so,
in goals a couple years ago? Yeah.
I
mean,
again, 26 years old. This guy, you get
crazy.
him, he's immediately a central piece of your core, and he plays right wing, which is a position of need for the Detroit Red Wings. Like, that's very much a piece that they need. You might have to, unfortunately, knock
any
Lucas Raymond down to
forward
the
depth
second line,
is gonna be helpful. Yeah, any forward depth you can get is gonna be helpful.
He's just such a no-brainer. But then the problem becomes, Scotty,
it just comes down to what you're gonna give up.
What you're going to give up for a guy like
which is
David
going to be
Pastrnak.
pretty hefty. Yeah,
it's going to be pretty hefty.
Now the thing is, you've been collecting draft capital.
Yes,
you've been collecting it, and that's why you hoard draft capital. You don't.
It's not just for using them in the draft. It's also for
I think there's a
trading them
common misconception of like people think that you just acquire a bunch of draft picks just so that you can have a bunch of draft picks. No, you acquire a bunch of draft picks so that you have the flexibility of we can take people in every single round, and now that we have more picks, we can then move those said picks as well and try and package them with stuff. You know, just getting as many assets as possible is the goal of a general manager of a rebuilding team. So that will help us a lot, but we're not going to be able to do it without giving up one of the probably bigger name prospects at that.
That's what I was going to say, because if the Boston Bruins do trade David Pastrnak, it's absolutely, going back to what we said at the start of the episode, signifies the start of a rebuild for the Boston Bruins. So they're going to be looking to begin to accumulate draft prospects, or draft picks and prospects. So you're going to have to give up. It's probably going to start with your number 8 overall pick, which honestly for David Pastrnak, I'd be comfortable giving up. Number 8.
Sure.
On top of that, you're going to have to give up one of your blue chippers.
Right. And that's the killer. That's like
the killer.
That's the part that sucks. Like I think everyone is okay with giving up 8 for him. I think everyone's okay with giving up 8 and maybe like a third or rounder. Like, I think
or one of our second rounders we have.
We have
like 2 second rounders.
Pretty willing to give up some of those top end draft picks for him. I think the real killer is gonna be the fact that you're gonna have to give up one of those better picks on top of one of the prospects that you don't want to let go of.
So, I mean, you're looking at, are you willing to give up not Moritz Seider? He's off limits.
No, absolutely not.
Are you willing to give up a Lucas Raymond, a Simon Edvinsson? Like, that's where it gets really hard, because these are prospects we are so high on. But David Pastrnak at 26 years old is a proven winner.
Right. So the other thing is, I think the Wings, going back to a conversation earlier, probably only make this deal with confidence that they can extend him immediately.
Exactly. That's another thing too.
I don't think there's any universe where the Wings are just going to do this and not fully believing that they're going to extend him. I think that it's a trade and sign.
It would have to be like a verbal agreement when the trade is made, is that he's
correct, which we've seen before. That's not like a ridiculous ask. Like, that happens all the time in hockey and basketball. So I think that for starters, like, that's definitely a big one. That's tough, man.
It's tough.
Like, I really don't want to.
I don't want to, but this is the price you pay.
I mean, right? We're talking about a dude who could bag 50 and 82.
And I'm trying to get my bias out of it, because you always hear these potential trades and underselling, like the fans of the team trying to trade for the player.
It's hard to convince anybody on Raymond, because you're then just swapping a forward for a forward, and not, obviously
a forward who just scored 40 goals though.
Right. So right. I'm not saying that they're the same talent of player, obviously, but when you're talking about team needs and depth and everything, he certainly makes the top line better, certainly. But you're kind of right back where you started as far as what's going on with lines 2 through 4. And then, like, but at the same breath, Edvinsson sucks too, because you have one good defender at the NHL level. So
yeah, I think I'd be.
tough, man.
This is going to be blasphemous, and I would be bummed. Like, I want to preface by saying I would be bummed if this were to happen, but I think I'd be more comfortable trading Lucas Raymond than Simon Edvinsson just because I feel like the defense needs more help than the forward core at this moment.
Sure.
With like immediate
I
needs. Like right now, we
if
only
you
have
had to
North
choose
side.
between those two
Exactly.
players, like I guess I would choose Raymond too, but that doesn't mean I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, ideally, I think that if you want to sweeten the pot, if you want to instead keep maybe your second round pick and you want to give them Phil Zadina, 22-year-old looking to revitalize his
So
career.
that's what I was going to end this conversation on, is bringing up him, because I'm not sure his value is all over the place. Like a lot of players have somewhat of a league wide value. Everybody, like if you were to rank how valuable a player is, Connor McDavid's a 10 and some pylon is a 1, right? Like the most players, if you go from GM to GM, are going to have around the same value for most guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Philip Zadina is a guy that number's gonna change. You know, he's never going to be viewed at as like an 8 or even a 7 probably currently, but like, I mean, there's probably some organizations out there that are going to be much more willing to take on a guy like that and believe in him a lot more than other teams. And so I think just the inconsistency of his value, it makes it, I mean, just from fan to fan, you ask Red Wings fans, like, hey, how good is Phil Zadina? Like, inconsistent as hell, right? So it's just when it comes to trading him, I like, who knows? Who knows? He's definitely, nobody thinks he's worth as much as the other two guys aforementioned, but like no one's gonna look at him and be like, oh yeah, well I won't take Raymond, but Zadina's fine. Like no one's gonna think
And like
that.
they're not going to want. Also, we got to remember too. Like Bertuzzi's been in the conversation for the Red Wings to trade for a while. I don't think the Boston Bruins would want Bertuzzi because if they're going into a rebuild, they're going to want to get younger. You're trading a 26-year-old for a 26-year-old. That's not
Right.
getting younger.
For
So
sure. And
that's
he's due up
why
for an extension too. That doesn't really make any
exactly
sense.
it would be a null move at that point. So I think if I were to make a trade offer right this instant for David Pastrnak, it would be the 8th overall pick, Philip Zadina, and I don't want to say it. Lucas Raymond. I mean, I feel like that is a reasonable
It's gonna
draft.
have to
I
be
think
like,
that's a reasonable, realistic package for a guy who's a proven, like, a borderline elite player in this league in David Pastrnak. I mean, again, he had 40 goals this year, 20 goals the season before in a shortened season. Then the 3 seasons prior to that, over 30. So it's just, here
well,
we are.
yeah, the season before that is when he was pushing 50. That's when he won the Richard.
Yeah. So it's just,
Yeah.
this is where we're at, guys. I mean, if you want to make a huge splash in the trade market and get a guy to fast forward your rebuild, you're going
So
to have
that
to live
becomes
up.
the conversation, is like, is what's more important to you? Is getting that huge bump now? I mean, you can extend him, sure. So is getting that huge bump now
And getting
and
competitive sooner.
immediately, and yeah, making your top end talent better immediately, worth, you know, giving up I mean, at least 2, potentially 3 key pieces for the future.
Or would
Is
you,
that
yeah,
worth it?
2, yeah. Or do you want to slow play it and just hope that our own talent plays out? I guess that's a good point, Scott. I guess that is the question, isn't it? It's
That's what
definitely an
it comes
interesting
down to.
conversation because I'd love to have Pasternak in the winged wheel. I just would be scared to see what
Yeah,
we'd have to
everyone
give up.
would. Right. Yeah, I think most people would. So, but at the end of the day, though, the market decides it. We've learned that from Steve, man. We learned that just at this past trade deadline, right? Getting a third when nobody wanted. Everyone was like, where's the rest of it, right? For Vlad. So, like, at the end of the day, the market determines the player's value. So, and he's certainly going to have a hell of a market.
You
So
know who else will
we'll see.
try and determine a player's value?
Who?
Bet
Oh, Bet
online.
Online.
Wonder what gave it away. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup, the NHL Hockey Conference Finals, and soon to be Stanley Cup Finals, Major League Baseball, and of course, all the latest fighting news in MMA and UFC to boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. Did you like that? Just like put it up on the screen, like, hey,
I did. That was nice, man.
we got to do this real quick. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are going to transition now into talking about the Athletics article on who the best TV broadcasting teams are. And Scotty, you got the article up. Break it down for us.
Yeah, so the Athletic did it seemed to be kind of like a fan poll where they went and you were asked to rank. This article is by Sean Shapiro and Harmon Dial, by the way, over at the Athletic. They ranked all 32 broadcast teams, TV broadcast teams for in the NHL. And do you want to say what the Detroit Red Wings are right now? I mean, I'd imagine it came out on Tuesday. You're listening to this on Wednesday. You've probably already seen it. So the Detroit Red Wings came in as the number 1 ranked TV crew in the entire NHL.
Voted by you.
Voted by the fans. So actually, you know what's crazy? They have where they ranked last season, because they did this last year as well. The Red Wings ranked 8th last year. And then this year, they have their national ranking, which was obviously 1 because that's what we're celebrating. But then they have their local ranking, which is where the city of Detroit ranked them.
Amongst like the 4 teams?
Where the city of Detroit, no. Where the city of Detroit ranked the Red Wings amongst the entire NHL, the average ranking. And the Red Wings local ranking was 3rd. So, while nationally we are the number 1 ranked
television
broadcast in the entire NHL, the city of Detroit itself, maybe we're just trying to be like modest and we're like, oh, we're probably like the 3rd best, but like we only had us ranked 3rd.
Well, I'm really curious who was ranked 2nd and 1st on that list then.
That's a great question that I don't know the answer to. It only has like the Red Wings, it only has their local ranking and then their national ranking. It doesn't have what the city of Detroit's entire 32 ranked was.
I would be really interested to see that. But regardless,
there are some other, like really impressive broadcasts on here too. I mean, the Canucks is widely up there every single year with Shorthouse and Garrett and such. So they're always toward the top. But one of the ones that I was really happy about was the Seattle Kraken tied for 2nd in their first year of existence.
Way to go. That's awesome.
Super, super cool. So
it's good for the game.
Yeah, very. So yeah, that was just a super cool thing. Like seeing the brand new expansion team up there that quickly was awesome. Do you want to take a crack at who you think the worst in the NHL was?
Boston Bruins.
The Boston Bruins. This is actually really funny. Boston Bruins come in at 30.
Oh, so close.
So here's the thing. When reading what the 32nd ranked team was, the first sentence is, frankly, it was surprising the Boston Bruins didn't end up in this spot. And we fully expected them to be. But there's some stuff going on with the 32nd ranked team too that I think played into why they're 32 as well.
Chicago Blackhawks?
No,
Arizona Coyotes.
Yes, the Coyotes are in fact the worst ranked team in the entire NHL. So it's 32 Arizona, just local ranking 31, national 32, last season 28. Really not great. The Anaheim Ducks are 31 and their local ranking was 32.
Wow. That's rough.
They're ranked 31, and their own fan base was like, yeah, these guys suck. They should be last.
Excuse me, Anaheim, I'm available if you want to mix things up. Just put my name out there.
Well, we already talked earlier. You'll be surprised where Locked On Red Wings ranks.
Yeah, right.
And then the Bruins are 30th. The Bruins are 30th. The Bruins' national rank was 31. But they even out. The local rankings 23, whatnot.
Their broadcaster, their play-by-play guy is Jack Edwards.
Yes, correct. Yeah, he had a lot of controversy this year.
Massive homer.
Yeah,
and he'll like always praise dirty hits by the Bruins and then condemn like things that are just like regular plays on other teams. He's a massive homer, so he's super polarizing
Well,
within
he
the Bruins fan
also,
base
yeah,
itself.
he had a lot of just comments about, just about, yeah, he said a lot of stuff. He got himself into a lot of current controversy. He had a lot of comments about, um, dangerous hits and injuries and how, just hockey players today and everything.
Yeah.
He's always got something to say and kind of has, um, yeah, more old school takes, we'll call them.
So
So
what was the top 5 though outside of Detroit?
sure. So number one, the Detroit Red Wings. Awesome, just write up. By the way, I don't want to read the whole thing because like I want to support writers. You should go get a subscription and buy it. But um, it is like there's one quote in there. It's like Ken Daniels provides a balanced level of excitement for the Red Wings and their opponents' accomplishments, while his enjoyment of the success for the Red Wings is apparent. He can recognize the performance of the opponent. Mickey Redmond brings his usual humor and old school mentality with a balance of insight. He's forgotten more hockey than he'll ever know while not holding back on a good ribbing.
That is so on point too.
Yeah.
So that let's
because like he's open about it. He's like, yeah, I don't remember. Like, I don't.
well, and what I really love about them too is like
Somebody said in here, one of the quotes in here is also like Mickey Redmond's the grandpa of like Detroit, and that could not be more accurate.
oh,
Like
absolutely the
everybody
flannels,
calls
man,
him.
the
Oh, the
flannels.
flannels, baby. The Mickey flannels. Yeah, no, it's a really cool write up, really cool piece. So
Definitely
go
get a
check it out.
subscription to The Athletic and go read it for yourself.
The top 5 I will read. Well, I'll read the top 4 because there's a tie for second. Red Wings 1, Vancouver Canucks and Seattle Kraken tied for 2, and then there's a tie for 4th as well. So there you go. The tied for 4th is the Blues and the Florida Panthers.
Okay, so
there you go.
The Red Wings, Ken Callan, Mickey Redmond, to no surprise, are the top. We've been saying it for years. Obviously, it's beginning to get national.
They're always in the
recognition.
top 10 when people
They're
do stuff
fantastic.
like that. Like, I mean, even last year in the same article written by the same people, they were 8. So, like, seeing them around that thing is very common and not surprising at all.
And so, like, it is exactly what that quote said. It's Ken Daniels and Mickey Redmond clearly have a passion and a love for the Detroit Red Wings, but also while they are, especially with Mickey Redmond, who played for the Red Wings, are slight homers. They're homers in the best kind of way. They're homers in the way that they're not afraid of calling out when the team's not performing well. And like there have been so many nights I've watched a hockey game and someone makes an awful play and Mickey Redmond goes, "What were they thinking here? What are they doing?" And also, of course, the giving the respect to the opponent and letting you know, like, this is the guy you look out for. This is one of the best teams in the NHL. They do it so well. And then, of course, on top of it, Ken Daniels' phenomenal play-by-play ability and Mickey Redmond's, just like you said, the humor and the insight as well. It just is absolutely a great dynamic, and they absolutely deserve to be in that number one spot. To the point, like Ken Daniels has gotten recognition before. Back when NBC had the rights, I remember he was calling playoff games. Like he was being subbed in for playoff games when there were so many going on in the first round. I remember him calling like a Philadelphia Flyers first round game before. So it's just like I am absolutely in love with it. I love that they're getting recognition and they deserve to be in that spot.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Red Wings. I accidentally just minimized the tab because I was trying to go over to my other monitor and go to a different tab on my monitor. And I didn't quite make it. So I thought I had exit out of the entire stream. And I was like, oh no, did I just exit out of Restream right at the end of the podcast?
I would have wrapped this baby up. You best believe it. I would have wrapped this baby up.
I like had a mini panic attack. And then I saw like the little toolbar at the bottom and it's like Google Chrome was still active. I was like, oh my God, I just minimized it. Thank God. Anyways, want to thank you guys for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NHL. Locked On NHL covers the playoffs like no other. Hear the latest news and opinions from local experts every Monday through Friday. It is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Scotty, do you have any final thoughts? Question mark?
BetOnline,
where the game starts.
We ball, baby.
We do. I'll be back with a new episode for you
frosty.
guys tomorrow. Stay frosty. Back with a new episode tomorrow, guys. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.